What's good people, and welcome to the Silly, Nerdy, Sometimes Wordy podcast, and I'm your host, BK, and this is episode 45, really late 2024, first round QB thoughts, focusing on the Atlanta Falcons, and this episode will be covering the Atlanta Falcons' first round QB draft pick, the situation he's walking into, the weapons he'll have, a look at the division, and his new head coach. That's what we'll be getting into. All right. What's going on, everybody? I hope everybody's doing really well. I'm always excited to get on here and talk some sports, film, or TV. But we're focusing on sports right now. So let's get into the Nerdy Notes. And this episode of Nerdy Notes, we're going to stay on football and the NFL. There's been some recent news, another contract extension, and this is from the 2021 draft class. Quarterback Trevor Lawrence has gotten his extension, and I believe he's gotten it a little early because he's got 2 years left on his rookie deal, but they decided to do this early. So his new deal is 5 years, $275 million overall, $200 million in total guarantees, $142 million guaranteed at signing. This puts him at an average of $55 million per year. So puts him up there, I believe, right around Joe Burrow. I think he's in the top 2 or 3 in terms of average year. So Trevor Lawrence gets his extension. He hasn't done too much yet. He's got a playoff win, had a great comeback. But we will see how the Jaguars do in that AFC South. The other news I want to get into is the last round, the last Hardknocks Announcements / reminders were just released the other day. So the last couple years, there's been 2 Hard Knocks shows. Now there will be 3. And there will be a twist on one of them, and there's a new one. So starting off on Tuesday, July 2nd, and all of these Hard Knocks shows will be on HBO, or Max as they're now called, but it's HBO. The new off-season Hard Knocks, this is a brand new one, so they're doing an off-season before training camp. This will premiere July 2nd, and it will be focusing on the New York Football Giants. And so that one will be a brand new one. We haven't seen a Hard Knock start that early, so looking forward to that one. And the next one, which is the one that has been around for many, many years, it started it all. It's been over 15 years. That one will be premiering the next month, August 6th. They will be focusing in on the Chicago Bears, which have the number 1 overall pick, Caleb Williams, and some of the free agent moves that they have made, as well as their other first-round pick, Rome Odunze, and Matt Eberflus and that crew. So this is going to be also, I believe, their very first time on Hard Knocks. I don't think they've been on Hard Knocks at all in their history. So this is going to be their first time on Hard Knocks. And the last one is going to be the in-season Hard Knocks, which premieres later in the year. Now, they've been doing this for the last 2 years. First, they started off with the Indianapolis Colts 2 years ago, and then last season it was the Miami Dolphins. So now they're going to be doing it again, and the last few years it's premiered in November. However, this time it will be premiering in December, specifically December 3rd, 9 p.m. And instead of focusing on one team, the league decided to do the in-season Hard Knocks on an entire division That means they're going to be focusing on 4 teams all throughout through the end of the season as it premieres in December, and then through the playoffs. So we'll be focusing in on the AFC North. That means the Cincinnati Bengals. That means the Cleveland Browns, the Pittsburgh Steelers, and the Baltimore Ravens. Now, 3 of those teams have been on the original single Hard Knocks team in August in the past. However, this will be the first time that the Pittsburgh Steelers will be on Hard Knocks. So this will be their first time. They have never been on Hard Knocks prior to this. But again, this will not be premiering until December 3rd, so they can get footage of them during game day practice at home with their families and everything in between. So we will see how these shows goes as they follow all of these teams. Always excited to watch how the inner workings of the organizations work with the players, the coaches, the staffs, and their families a little bit, and what they do in their downtime when they get it. So that is the nerdy notes. Now let's get into the main topic, and that is my late first round draft 2024 thoughts and the quarterbacks, focusing on the Atlanta Falcons. And they had the number 8 overall pick. And this was a surprise to everyone on the outside, but they went and drafted a quarterback. Now, before I talk about that quarterback, if you remember, the Atlanta Falcons went after the biggest free agent quarterback, I would say free agent overall, back in March. Kirk Cousins, he did not stay with the Minnesota Vikings. He went over to the Atlanta Falcons. So it was the Falcons that got Kirk Cousins because he was the big fish that everyone was waiting on before other teams would make their move. So Kirk Cousins eventually went over and agreed to terms with the Atlanta Falcons, and they gave him, big real money. It was a 4-year deal, $180 million overall, $50 million signing bonus, $90 million in guarantees, $100 million in total guarantees, giving him an average of $45 million per year over the course of this contract, and also $10 million due in 2026. Now, this deal was agreed to and signed back in March. And you also have to consider that Kirk Cousins is coming off of an ACL injury that he suffered, I want to say relatively early-ish last season with the Minnesota Vikings when he was playing very well at the time. So they're giving him this money, him coming off the injury. He seems to be doing very well. So they did this in March. It was like, Kirk is our guy, right? And then fast forward to April 2024 and the draft. And the Falcons are on the clock. We're thinking they're going to go edge rusher, maybe receiver, maybe offensive line, maybe corner. But no, they shocked all of us. Outside of the Atlanta Falcons, and they decided to draft a quarterback, Michael Penix, out of the University of Washington. Now, you draft a quarterback that high, at some point that quarterback, under normal circumstances, is expected to play at some point, whether he starts week 1 or whether he sits for a while, half of the season, most of the season, and he comes in and plays. So they signed Kirk Cousins to all of this big contract, this guaranteed money, and then they draft this guy, Michael Penix. And he had some injuries during his career, but he's good to go now, but he's going to have some time to heal. So it's just an interesting dynamic. It's going to be an interesting quarterback room that this team is going to have. And recently I was listening to another podcast, and they had the new head coach, Raheem Morris, on, and he was asked about this. You sign Kirk Cousins, and then you get this quarterback, and he's like, well, we got our guy for now, and then we have our highest rated quarterback sitting on the board, and he's staring at us. And they couldn't resist it, so they had to take him. So he was like, I'm paraphrasing, we have our quarterback now that can win now, and we get our heir apparent where he can sit and learn. So the interesting thing about this is, before I get to the weapons, is Michael Penix is 24 years old at the moment. Kirk Cousins is 35. Now, it's a 4-year deal. Is he going to play the whole 4 years? Who knows? It's not likely, but you don't know. You never know what can happen. And Kurt signed a 4-year deal. Michael Penix is a first-round pick. Now, first-round picks have that 5th-year option. And at the end of year 4, they have to decide if they're going to pick up that 5th-year option for their first-round pick. So the question is Kirk Cousins going to play the whole 4 years of this deal? Or perhaps he plays 1 or 2 years. Maybe they get a Super Bowl. Maybe they get 2, and then he retires, and Michael Penix can slide right in. But what if Kirk Cousins is still around when they have to make this decision on Michael Penix? And at the same time, they need to see Michael Penix play to make this decision. So that's just interesting dynamic that they have put themselves in, but they wanted to improve their quarterback, because you can never have enough. Injuries do happen in the league. You never know. They happen in preseason. They happen in practice. They happen in games. So that's just an interesting quarterback decision that they made, financial decision that they'll have to make. It's very extremely unique. So not really sure what they're going to do, but I'm fascinated to see how it's going to play out over the next few years. And yeah. But moving on, the weapons that, before I get to the weapons, let's talk about the coaching staff. So Michael Penix, along with Kirk Cousins, they're having a brand new coach, because the previous coach was let go. So Raheem Morris is now the brand new head coach, and this is his second time around. If you remember, he was the youngest head coach back in 2009 of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, at 32 years at that time. So he is a new head coach for the second time. He's been on the Los Angeles Rams. He was on that coaching staff when they won the Super Bowl back in 2021 on a defensive side. He's been on the offensive and defensive side of the ball in different positions. So we'll see how this goes. But I'm sure he has talked about he's learned a lot since his first time being head coach. So he's going to do things a different way, and he's surrounding himself with a good coaching staff. So we'll see how that goes. And he's been in Atlanta as well in a different role. So, and he knows the people in the building, including the owner. So he has good relationships there, so which will help him. What will also help the new head coach and these quarterbacks is the weapons that the Falcons have. Of course, let me talk about who they already have. They have who they've added. They added Darnell Mooney, free agent wide receiver that came over from the Chicago Bears. They also added Rondale Moore, wide receiver that came over from the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm focusing on the wide receiver room right now. And they had Khalil Hodge as well. Now, they have 3 first-round draft picks over the last couple years, one which is Drake London. So that is going to be interesting to see. Hopefully, they will really get him going because for us fantasy folks, it has been up and down, disappointing to say the least with Drake London and his usage. Another wide receiver that they got in free agency was Ray McLeod. So he'll be playing wide receiver and then probably some special teams as well. So that is the wide receiver room. And then in the tight end room, another first round pick is Michael Pitts. And he has been up and down as well. His usage has not been great. So hopefully that will improve. They also drafted Austin Stage as well. And then they have Charlie Warner, a free agent, to come over. And then the running back room. Just focus on the two that were there, that have been there. Tyler Algier, he's been solid the last few years. Of course, Bijan Robinson, another first-round pick. So he is dynamic. He can run the ball, catch the ball. He can block, run routes, put him in the slot. Different things you can do with him. So hopefully this new coaching staff will be able to unlock him as well as Drake London and Michael Pitts. And will give us good fantasy numbers this coming season. Now the quarterback room, talked about it a little bit earlier, but of course Kirk Cousins was brought in on the new contract via free agency. Of course they drafted Michael Penix, and of course they have also Taylor Heineke. So a good solid quarterback room as well. Now one of the last things I'll talk about, last two things, the offensive line. The offensive line last season was one of the better offensive lines last year. And of course, I've been using this draft system or ranking tier system from the player profile website. And this time, per their site last season, the Atlanta Falcons fell under tier 2, which was great, just not elite. And they tied for giving up the 6th fewest sacks with 40. So 40 sacks were allowed last season, which is pretty solid compared to the previous teams that I've talked about already, where their numbers were pretty high at 65 and 85. So that's per StatMuse. And again, I spoke earlier about the new head coach for the second time. And then lastly, the division that this team is in. They are in the NFC South. And I believe a very, very winnable division. They have the Carolina Panthers. They have the New Orleans Saints, as well as the Atlanta Falcons. And the other team that currently escapes me right now that they have in that division. So that is going to be an interesting division. I think it's a very much winnable division for this Atlanta Falcons team. So I think they can automatically become the winner of this division. The other team that I was trying to think about is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Now, they won the division last season. They have Baker Mayfield there. So they're bringing mostly everyone back. So I believe it will be between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons battling for this division. And we will see how that goes. It's not the toughest division. So, yeah, it will be between those two teams. And look forward to seeing how that goes. And, yeah, that is the Atlanta Falcons in their first-round pick, drafting a quarterback after signing a big-time free agent in Kirk Cousins. So we'll see how that goes. And, okay, that is all I have for you on this episode. And hope you enjoyed it. I have one more to do with these late first round QB looks. The last one will be focusing on the Denver Broncos and their first round QB selection in Bo Nix. And new head coach, but not new to the team the last few years, Sean Payton. So we'll see how that goes. Hope you enjoy this podcast. I enjoy talking about it, as well as the nerdy notes. Please tell a friend, like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio. So please give us a listen wherever you can. Hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. Maybe get you excited for this coming season. Watch some Hard Knocks. Get you ready for the season. So, yeah, that's all I have for you today. And until next time, we will talk soon.